All right, let's dive into one of the most shocking corporate scandals in modern history. Seriously, this story is a wild ride.
Okay, let's start with a number. $14 billion. That's how much investor money, how much market value just vanished from a single company. It felt like it happened overnight.
I mean, this collapse was so huge, it caused the biggest one-day drop the Nasdaq had ever seen up to that point. It just sent these massive shockwaves through the entire financial world, and everyone was left asking the same thing. How on earth did this happen? Well, to answer that, we have to go back to April 1998. This was a time when a celebrated Wall Street darling suddenly and very spectacularly just imploded. And this right here? This is the moment the bombshell dropped. When the news about some accounting irregularities came out, Cendant's stock didn't just dip, it completely fell off a cliff. The crash was so bad, it dragged the whole Nasdaq down by a staggering 23%. It was a bloodbath. But here's the really wild part. This corporate giant that just collapsed in this incredible fashion, it had only been created about a year earlier through a massive blockbuster merger. So let's rewind the clock to 1997. You have to picture the scene. It was the height of the dot-com boom. There was this absolute merger mania happening on Wall Street. And this deal, it was the poster child for the whole era. So on one side, you had CUC International, this huge direct marketing and telemarketing company. And on the other, you had HFS Incorporated, a hospitality giant that owned massive brands like Avis and Ramada. Two very different companies decided to join forces, and let me tell you, Wall Street was absolutely captivated. The combined value of the new company, they called it Cendant, was an unbelievable $30 billion. It literally became a market titan overnight. Oh, the hype was just completely off the charts. Everyone was calling it the perfect marriage, a company that was destined for enormous, stable growth. But you know how these stories go. Beneath all that glitz and excitement, a massive deception was hiding in plain sight. So, what exactly was this deception? Well, this is where the story gets really dark and we get to the core of the fraud. The entire scheme was built on a trick that's surprisingly simple but just devastatingly effective: fictitious revenue. To put it simply, they just made stuff up. They booked sales that never, ever happened. You see, for years before this big merger, executives at CUC had been running what was basically a phantom revenue machine. They'd create completely fake sales, like phantom memberships to discount clubs that didn't exist. This little trick allowed them to inflate their revenue numbers by anywhere from 30 to 50%. And the most crucial part, they managed to keep this massive lie hidden during the frantic rush to get the merger done. By the time CUC merged with HFS to create Cendant, they had faked $500 million in revenue. Just think about that. $500 million, built on absolutely nothing. So you have to be asking, how did this massive, carefully built house of cards finally come crashing down? Well, it all unraveled incredibly fast. The merger happens in late 97. By April of 98, less than a year later, a routine audit after the merger finally uncovers the whole scheme. The new CEO, Henry Silverman, immediately fired the team responsible, but it was way too late. The damage was done, and this absolute avalanche of lawsuits just came pouring in. And the fallout was just brutal. That $14 billion market loss was only the beginning. Executives were facing criminal charges. The company had to pay what was then a record-breaking $2.85 billion to settle with angry shareholders. And just to survive, Cendant was forced to sell off some of its crown jewels, like the Avis car rental company. But through all of this, one question haunted everybody. It was the question that sent a chill down the spine of Wall Street. How did the auditors, the lawyers, the bankers, everyone involved in a $30 billion deal, how did they all miss a $500 million lie? This intense investigation they're supposed to do, called due diligence, completely failed. And the answer to that question would change corporate America forever. You know, the Cendant scandal wasn't just another story of corporate greed. It actually became a really powerful catalyst for some fundamental and much-needed change. Because the answer to that billion-dollar question, it was disturbingly simple. In the absolute frenzy to close the deal, to cash in on that merger mania, speed was prioritized over careful, detailed checking. Those critical accounting red flags were just blown right past. Its legacy is literally written into the rule books that govern finance today. The shock from the Cendant collapse helped push forward the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, this huge piece of legislation designed to protect investors from exactly this kind of fraud. It led to mandatory audits in mergers, completely reshaped how due diligence is done, and it really did force a whole new era of corporate accountability. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question, one that's just as relevant today as it was back in 1998. After all the new rules, after all the lessons learned, in today's high-stakes world of corporate deal-making, do you think mega mergers still prioritize speed over scrutiny? Something to think about.